These mushrooms are growing on this giant cedar stump that my friend Marty's here. And they've bloomed out before too, you can see. But this is a fresh bloom, and I just thought I would get a close-up shot of them because they're really cool looking. I'm not sure what kind of mushrooms they are. I'm certainly no expert in mushrooms, but they're cool, and I appreciate them. Very short clip here, but just up to the farm to collect the stakes because I'm moving things around in the lab, and I realize I need stakes for the peppers. So I'm up here to clip the strings and pull these and get them out of here for the winter. I might snag a tomato root or two just for the heck of it. Stick in the lab just to see how they do. Anyway, wanted you to hear the crickets singing. Just so you can see it's wrapped up. It's not a lot of protection, but it'll help keep direct airflow from hitting the roots and help protect those sensitive root hairs a little bit better. Potato block. Haven't harvested it by this end yet, but these are those Roma plums that had the mulch down, and you can see where the deer have just been chewing them back and chewing them back, basically grazing on these as they grow back. So I'm going to snag one of these. I think I'll take this one. That's a nice big bush. I'm just going to yank that whole thing out by the root, take it back to the lab, and plug it in. I guess I'll just give you a shot of it yanked out. You can see where it started on the original root, and then it bent over and rooted again. They're going to plug this whole bush in, probably prune it back a bit before it gets plugged in, and then revitalize it in the lab, hopefully. And hopefully that'll accelerate us forward to production much more quickly in the grow lab. I thought I would get a clip of these tomatoes that I brought back last night from the farm. I got to prune them down still before they can go in the lab, but just wanted to show how even though the deer have chewed on these all crazy, you can see a lot of regrowth happening on these. A lot of new leaf sets coming on, like there. Oh, you can see some deer hair there too. Look at that. And there. All right, I'll prune these up and then we'll get them in the lab and get them going. All right, October 2nd, 2024. Got these tomato plants. It's gotten dark out because here we are in the northern hemisphere. I got an old planter with a bunch of soil in it, which I'm going to shake up a bit. And I've got the tomato plants that I brought back from the farm. And I'm just going to do some pruning on these and get them trimmed down a bit. I'll just show you again the two plants that I brought back. Yeah, this is just two plants, or two parts of two plants, really. So, let me find the other one, that's in there, okay. So, this is really just one plant. And I can show you that. You see the original stem, and then you can see this other stem where it touched the ground and rooted up again. I'm going to use both of those root structures, but I'm going to trim down a good majority of this plant. I'm going to start back from something we can control in the grow lab. One thing you'll learn about growing plants as you get more experience is that oftentimes one of the big parts of having good success in making plants yield whatever you're trying to grow with them is controlling them properly. You know, in nature, they're designed to do one thing. That's basically reproduce and propagate. And they will go absolutely crazy to make that happen. But when we're trying to get a certain amount of produce off of them and work them in a certain space, it's often quite helpful to go out of our way to control the plant. And then, of course, we have tools within that and tools within that. But one example of that is that cytokine-ox imbalance I talk so frequently about, because it's a really powerful tool you can have. It doesn't require anything other than the knowledge and a pair of snippers to employ. On a big scale, it could be a mower, or a brush hog, or a chainsaw. And on a little scale, you know, it can go down right down to, you know, a little cutting. So you can see I'm carving quite a bit of upper plant material off of these stems to get down to just a nice clean plant base. And pulling all the dead stuff out. I'm clipping off anything that has dead ends on it. And just pruning it down good. Because what I want to do is get this to fit as basically a huge propagation base for a giant, I think these are Scatoloni or one of the Roma plums, I believe these are, from the farm. And you can see this still has some flowers on it. I'm going to go ahead and clip that off as well. We don't want it trying to reproduce while it's trying to get reestablished, because it will do that if we let it. And so that's another good example of controlling a plant in order to achieve the goal that you're after. So that's down to a pretty good stalk. I still don't feel like I'm really done with that. And I think I'm even going to cut some of these new growth shoots off, because I really want to get back to something we can manage in the lab easily. And also something we can train the new vines up with. You know, the vines have grown all kinds of different screwy directions out in the field without any stakes on them. And this will give us an opportunity for them as they grow back to control that as well and keep our vines under control. And then we can easily prune and pick what we want to prune. It makes the whole plant more accessible for us as humans to be able to visually figure out how to work with the plant. You can see this is a much less complex jungle of plant material now. And I'll probably still trim some more stuff off this once I get it in. To get down to, I'm just after basically cutting just after the nodes on most of these. And each of these nodes, okay, the node is where the stems join, and the internode is the space between where stems join. So I'm cutting on the node here. Try and get a good shot of that for you. And leaving a piece of stem off to the side. And each of those points, each of those node points will grow back and grow new growth out. It'll be my job in the lab to keep that from turning back into a bush basically overnight. And one way I'll accomplish that is by clipping some of these back as they start to grow out and encouraging some of the other ones to grow. And then we'll grow them up to stake and train them out. So that's kind of the concept behind what I'm doing here. But we have a nice, big, thick, heavy-duty stem stalk as a base with lots and lots of large root material and lots of fine root hairs. The large roots are great. They will reach down into the soil and they'll set out these finer hairs. As you can probably see here, they'll set these finer hairs out, and those finer hairs are where the root tips are, and that's where most of the exchange is done between the plant and the soil. Always keeping in mind, of course, that the plant is the digestive tract, or the soil is the digestive tract of the plant. Much like our gut biome works, very similar around the root zone. And that root zone where the root and the soil meet is called the rhizosphere. There are 5 main spheres in soil, and maybe I'll pull a clip up, or you can go back and watch a deeper look into soils and mulches on my channel.
Okay, so I opted to just show you a screenshot. It's a closer look at soils and mulch. You search that on my channel, and you will see these 3 videos come up. Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. And I believe I go into soil horizons, the 5 horizons in Part 2.
I'll throw a link or something up. Anyway, so that's pretty well pruned up. I'm going to get rid of this dead grass. I just want to make sure we don't bring any potential rot into our grow lab, because that's a very different environment than outdoor. So now we have a nice stem, and I'll just show you this other one that I pulled out the other night. That actually needs a prune there too. Get that dead stuff off and gone. Okay. So, there we are. 2 tomato plants. This one I think was one of the, I think it was like blue oxheart or something along those lines, something similar to that type of tomato. These were delicious and they were nice.
While we wait for that to grow out, you can always go and check out some of the other playlists here on the channel. There's lots of other stuff to watch. Believe me, by the time that grows out, you will still have not seen all the content here. Some of it's okay.
I figured I'd save 2 varieties and try and get those to work in the lab. They're going to take a ton of space in the lab, so I'm going to try to make it count this year. Anyway, I think we're going to put both of these in the same planter together. Actually, second thought, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get another planter for the other one. So we'll take this huge one here and we'll work it into this planter. And I'll just break the soil up a little bit with my hands and mix it around a bit. Make sure it stays uniform. You can see the soil is pretty soft right off if I can just reach in with my fingers and hands and break it up. That's a nice growing medium to work in, because you can do something as simple as this where you just kind of push it all aside. You can take your 2 big root balls like that and kind of tuck them down into the planter as best you can. If they will cooperate, and then you can just kind of tuck the soil back around them like that. And then I'll come back. Actually, I'll probably wait till I get this into the grow lab, but I'll come back and water these in good to settle that soil around them. And then I'll come back with a shot of Rootedleaf Agritech nutrients, and we'll see what we can do to get these things turned on. I'm definitely going to do some of the Rootedleaf Agritech Lush Green, and I probably will do some Root Anchor as well to help them get rocking. And I think they'll explode in the lab as soon as we do that. So that's one in. I'm going to grab another planter, we'll get the other one in, and then we're good to go. Right to the lab. Alright, we got planter number 2. This planter has some extra soil, so I'm going to help use that. I'm going to use that to help fill this in a little better on this guy, because this could actually use a little more soil, especially once it starts settling, once I water it in. And I want lots of soil volume for these plants to throw roots into, because they will use every bit of it. If I can pull up a shot, or if you recall from last year in the lab, I actually had tomato plants where the roots were coming right up out of the planter, and it's pretty cool to see. Roots that were so vigorous that they just didn't even want to give up. We got another stalk in here from a different plant. So that's out. Now we got a nice deep root zone and a nice full planter. Plug this puppy in. Give you a shot of that again. There's not much to the top of this. There's just a few little pieces of green leaf sticking out. But there's lots of plant stalk here, and that's lots of reserve energy in that stalk for this plant to throw new leaves out and start photosynthesizing again and creating its own energy source and feeding some of that to the soil. Remember, all the energy in our soils comes from the sun. In fact, all the energy we use on this planet, if you go back far enough, pretty much comes from the sun. And plants are no different. All right, here they are back in the lab. I'm going to go ahead and give them a good solid soaking with some water and hit them with some Rootedleaf Agritech products. So I put on Rootedleaf Agritech A and B, their primer blend, base blend, yesterday. And today we already have new growth here on this lemon verbena. Those top new shoots right there are all new in 24 hours. Check in on the catnip. That is taken off nicely. Alright, so I've gone through and given them a solid watering, a nice slow soaking watering. And you can see some of it ran down through a bit, but over the next hour or two that'll soak back into the remaining soil as it
really takes up the moisture. It was pretty dry. And now I'm going to go back with some Lush Green and some Root Anchor from Rootedleaf Agritech and give these a shot to help them get established and get that lush green growth going. As an example, this catnip has only had one feeding of Lush Green. That's it since it came in. And it went from pretty sad looking and spindly to explosive growth. And you can see that some of these leaves are quite large. I have large hands and they're just huge leaves. Just for a comparison. And so what do I expect here with these plants, with these nutrients? I expect about a week stall while they get established, and then an explosion of lush, powerful growth that I'll have to prune to control and maintain. And I'm quite certain that we will see that. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for watching the Pharmacy Seeds Network.